Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into the absolute chaos that is the graphics card market of 2026. It's a battle that's really being defined by two main rivals, NVIDIA's 5070 Ti and AMD's 9070 XT. And if you really want to get the pulse of how gamers are feeling right now, you just have to look at comments like this one from Reddit. $610 for a 5060 Ti ought to be investigated by the FTC or something. It perfectly sums up the anger and the confusion that's out there. So, that brings us to the big question, right? In a market that feels completely off the rails, what is the smart move for a PC gamer? Well, we're going to figure that out by breaking down the two main contenders fighting for your hard-earned cash.
But hold on. Before we can even compare the cards, we have to understand why we're in this mess in the first place. What on earth went wrong with the GPU market?
Well, it's not just one thing. It's what some are calling a crisis cocktail. It's a perfect storm. First, you've got geopolitical turmoil closing the Strait of Hormuz, which has led to a critical shortage of helium, and you absolutely need helium to make semiconductors. On top of that, the AI boom means data centers are buying up every bit of high-speed memory they can find. So what happens? The manufacturers, they're prioritizing the super high-margin AI chips, which leaves the supply for us gamers seriously squeezed.
Okay, so in this pretty brutal market, two main options have really emerged for anyone trying to build a high-end PC, the 5070 Ti and the 9070 XT.
And this slide really tells you everything you need to know about their different philosophies. On one side, you have NVIDIA pushing the absolute cutting edge with their Blackwell architecture and brand new GDDR7 memory. Their focus is all on AI and ray tracing. But then you have AMD, and they've taken a much more pragmatic route with RDNA 4. They're sticking with a more traditional design and the more widely available GDDR6 memory. Their goal? Raw gaming power, and, this is the key, better cost efficiency.
All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off and get to the most painful part of this whole conversation. Round one, price versus what you actually have to pay on the street.
Yeah, so the manufacturer's suggested retail price, that's basically become a fantasy, a historical artifact. The 5070 Ti was supposed to launch at $749, the 9070X at a pretty aggressive $599. But the reality? Here in April 2026, the median price for that NVIDIA card has ballooned to over $1,400, while the AMD card is sitting around $780. Just wow.
And this chart just lays it all bare. It's not just that the 5070 Ti is expensive. It's inflated by a staggering 87% over its launch price. The 9070 XT's premium, while it's still high at 30%, it's nowhere near as severe. The market is clearly reacting very, very differently to these two cards.
So, okay, with a price gap that wide, you'd think the NVIDIA card just absolutely demolishes the competition, right? I mean, there has to be a huge performance lead to justify that kind of price. Well, let's see about that.
Not quite. Actually, not even close. When you look across a massive 55-game benchmark suite, the average performance difference is just 5%. That's it. So for that nearly 90% price premium, you are getting, on average, a 5% performance boost. Now, of course, averages don't tell the whole story. Let's look at some specific games at 1440p. And it's a real slugfest. In Counter-Strike 2, NVIDIA takes a solid 10% lead. But then you fire up a huge title like Call of Duty, and boom, AMD storms ahead by over 22%. And in a really demanding ray tracing game like F124, they're basically in a dead heat. It really depends on the game you play.
But NVIDIA has an ace up its sleeve, and it is a big one. When you move from traditional gaming to the most visually complex workload there is, full path tracing, where light physics are simulated for maximum realism, the story changes dramatically.
And look no further than Cyberpunk 2077. With path tracing cranked up at 1440p, the RTX 5070 Ti hits a very smooth, very playable 64 frames per second. The 9070 XT is struggling down at just 38. That is a nearly 70% performance advantage for NVIDIA. And frankly, it makes it the only card of these two that can actually deliver a great path-traced experience.
So what's behind that massive path tracing lead? Well, it's all about the software. So let's take a look at the two competing ecosystems, NVIDIA's DLSS and AMD's FSR.
This slide really highlights a key gap in the tech. NVIDIA's DLSS 4.5 is using this super sophisticated AI model for multi-frame generation, which can boost your frame rates up to 6 times.
Now, AMD's FSR4 is a huge step up for them, but it's still playing catch-up. They promised their own multi-frame feature, but so far it just hasn't materialized.
And, this gap between the promise and the reality, it is a major source of frustration for AMD owners. Like this Redditor put it, "Redstone is nothing but a marketing gimmick. My laptop with the 5060 shit just works." It's a harsh take for sure, but it really shows you how important reliable working software is to gamers.
Okay, so after all this data, all this frustration, and these absolutely eye-watering prices, what is the verdict? What's the smart play for someone trying to build a PC in 2026?
It really just boils down to this. The NVIDIA RTX 5070 Ti is, without a doubt, the technical marvel. It's got that unmatched path tracing and a mature, feature-packed DLSS software suite. The problem? It comes with an extreme 87% price premium, and it's incredibly hard to even find. Then you've got the AMD RX 9070 XT. This is the pragmatic choice. It gives you 95% of the standard gaming performance for a fraction of the street price, and it's much easier to buy. The downsides? Weaker ray tracing and that frustratingly slow rollout of its promised software features.
You see, in a normal, healthy market, we might just chase the highest frame rates, period. But in 2026, the game has completely changed. Everything, and I mean everything, comes down to the value proposition, that balance between what you get and what you pay. And in a market this broken, that is the single most important thing to look at.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question that you have to answer for yourself. In a market like this one, is that technical perfection in one specific feature like path tracing worth an 87% premium? Or has good enough become the new best? The right choice for you depends entirely on how you answer that question.